country. Now, they have become brands over years, especially when family comes in to take over or to become the sitting position, diba? Their children, their wives, their grandchildren over the years. And why not? There are a lot of big names. But these names, these family names, however some may call them oligarchs or feudal lords, whatever, they're still brands, either way you look at it. From a marketing point of view, the brand name is what carries it. For example, Marcos. You've got a senator and you've got the wife of the past president sitting in Congress. The name Marcos becomes a brand. Yang ganyan, you already have a birthright to your name because it's called the civil registry. It's called your birth certificate. Yan ba ganyan kailangan pa rehistro?
Okay, when you are a public figure, normally you don't have to anymore. You don't have
Kasi birth, ano naman yan? Birth certificate.
unless-
I am whatever.
Yes, unless you're going to start commercializing or capitalizing on your name, meaning you're going to use it as a brand on coffee cups or coffee shops, or there is a tangible product on which you're going to put your name on. For example, Sharon Cuneta recently was issued a trademark registration by the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines for use on merchandising. So merchandise.
If you want to.
Yes.
So you need to create a product to extend the name to a specific brand. But to register it, for example, you are the grandson of a big name. Let's call it Singson. You're not the you are a grandson maybe of the sister of Singson. Because the sister of Singson, for example, marries and it becomes another name. It becomes Batumbakal, whatever. Your name goes down. You're really a grandson or a grandnephew, and you go into politics and you want to use the name Singson again. But it's really not in your middle name, nor is it, or it could be your middle name.
Yeah, it doesn't appear anymore as
It
your
doesn't
last
appear
name.
anymore as your, And there are many politicians who do that. They use the maiden name or whatever name, and they don't use the name. Swerte lang si Pinoy, because Aquino, Cojanco are both big political clans and brand names. But in this specific case, if a person wants to use it as a brand, that's when he should register it. Am I right?
Yes. When you are going to start using your name commercially. So for political purposes, you don't need registration. In fact, there is a decided case on a popular political figure on whom there was a movie shot, and he was portrayed negatively in that foreign film, and he tried to stop the airing of that film, citing that he has trademark and privacy rights over his good name. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court said that since you are a public figure, and as a person, you're not using it on commercial products, you're not into commerce, you're not producing articles of manufacture, then you don't have first of all trademark registration, and not that you need to, and second of all, you belong to the public.
So if you're a public figure, it's good to create a merchandise somehow, so at least there's some type of registration. For example, how about movie stars? We all know they don't use their names. They use what they call screen names. Ang screen name ba kailangan rehistro mo? That's a very interesting idea. Because it's a brand.
Yeah, screen names, no, because it falls under the domain of copyright. And again, when it's creative, when it's creative or literary or artistic works, meaning music, film, books, you don't have to register it, because under international law and our domestic law, copyright is protected from the moment of creation. So no registration requirements for anything creative like that. But unlike in trademarks and patents, there is also commercial counterfeiting. So that's when you need registration.
In the case of Sharon Cuneta, which you just cited, there are articles of manufacture basically for merchandise. She's allowed to register the name Sharon Cuneta. So that way, at least registrado. Maybe that is an alternative to congressmen or public names, which is public in nature, which you really can't because it's copyright. But if you wanted to protect that specific name commercially and use it as a brand,
to prevent other people
then
from
create
making
a
money
product
out of
to make
your
money
name.
out of your name. Yeah,
Because,
very good.
for example, once I start using the Aquino brand, although I think they've, like any other form of property, you can waive your rights over it. Like land, you can waive your right if you don't want to put a fence on it, you don't want to protect it. Same with
you
intellectual
need not
property.
do it. In other words,
Yes.
it's not obligatory.
So it's okay if for example, the Aquino family has waived their rights over the brand, meaning anyone can use it without permission. then that's also okay.
Pwede rin yun.
Because there's a waiver on the part of the
But
intellectual
should you-
property owner.
But should you want to protect it, there are ways of doing it.
Oh,
So
of course.
maybe that should be a message to all the politicians. You better register your names. Baka
But you
magamit
never
ng
know
iba pa yan.
when you
Kasi
may need to capitalize on the name.
mas lalo na kung pangalan mo parang Juan de la Cruz, di ba?
Or something
What?
generic.
Oh, yung more generic, Santos, Lim, then i-register mo na, gawa mo na ng paraan, di ba?
In fact, Manny Pacquiao also filed for trademark
Oh,
registration.
was he able to do that, attorney?
Well, first of it's pending. This application is pending, but definitely.
Kasi brand yan.
Yes, it's a brand and it's going to use it on sports articles. So, yung mga like okay. Yung
Galing,
mga like sports articles, rubber shoes. I don't know what exactly.
Well, he's already endorsing multiple products on billboards, on
yes,
TV.
but definitely why not? I mean, put out a line of clothing called Manny Pacquiao. So definitely he's going to make his brand commercial. Okay, joining me this morning is Mr. Harry Tambuadco, and right now we're going to pause for a short news break from BBC News.
We now return to Piracy Watch on DZRJ 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines. Here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
All right, you're still on the Voice of the Philippines, 810 RJAM, currently on Piracy Watch with me and Mr. Harry Tambuadco joining us this morning to discuss trademarks and trademark infringement. Okay, earlier today we heard news that Ford Motor Company is suing luxury automaker Ferrari, which created an F-150 or Ferrari 150, its race car for 2011 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Italian independence. So Ford basically said that the F-150 of Ferrari infringes on its top pickup vehicle in the United States, which is the F-150.
Attorney, wouldn't that be elementary? Tama naman, because F-150 is already a Ford product. It's already they've created a brand and they've created a goodwill and basically the tangible vehicle called the Ford F-150. Ferrari doing it simply because it's their anniversary should succumb to the complaint of Ford F-150. Need that go through arbitration still? It's so obvious. Anong gusto palabasin ng Ferrari? Mali naman ata yun, di ba? Kayo, you're with trademarks.
Actually, I've seen the trademark last night. The two competing trademarks, the F-150 that you see in Ford vehicles. It's also common here. You own one. And the F-150, the Ferrari 150th Italian anniversary commemorative car for 2011. And they both are confusingly similar. Yes, because the only difference is there's no hyphen, no dash between the F and then 150.
But even if there was a dash,
it's
should
still
they,
confusingly similar. People will still confuse it for the F-150 of Ford. And the only difference is, another difference is the color. So the background color for the Ferrari,
red,
of course, is red. And the F-150 is a silver logo. But still, without conceding, Ferrari had issued a statement that it is changing the name of the car from F-150 to F-150th.
Oh, terrific. Yung ganon pwede.
Yes.
But here in the Philippines, that happens a lot. Dito gaya-gaya, but the problem is there is intent. Magaling yung nagkamali. In this case, maybe the creatives. I'm sure on Ferrari's case, maybe hindi nila naisip yun. The people at fault there would be the creatives. But there are people and there are companies that do it with intent. And we know
they want
that.
to capitalize on the already existing good name.
The goodwill of
Or
others. And that's what listeners have to be wary of. No? Meron talaga ang tao dyan na may intent talaga. Yeah. And with intent, they really want to grab the goodwill that you've created over years and years.
And it really, I'll also attribute that to creativity. So they copy brands with enough points of similarity and enough points of difference so as to defend themselves from any future infringement cases.
Well, imitation is what they say the highest form of respect,
Flattery.
Of flattery.
Yes.
It also impinges or kalaban niya ng property, intellectual property. Hindi tama because when we create brands, especially I'm with Super Brands and we're the world's brand arbiter. And we always make it known that when people create brands, a brand is but a name. a name that is created out of an innovative or a creative thought. It's just, it can be X, Y, and Z. That's the brand. But the work, the money, the promotions, the strategies, over years, toiling over years to create the
Yes.
brand, that's the goodwill you create. Now, somebody comes along and all they want to do is take it away from you. And really, this happens, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are listening, every day of the year. You have to remember, in the marketplace, there are close to 30,000 brands being introduced in this country every year. So you can just imagine the confusion when you're at the supermarket shelf. I mean, we already see it when we go through the different brands of different products, identical products. There's between, for example, Copico and Nestle, that new issue, you know, magkamukha yung mga colors nila, color schemes. You see, you can't help but see identifying marks. In reality, when they copy, it's not necessarily flattery. It is to confuse the buying public so that they can grab a bit of goodwill from those that have worked it out over years. Now, that's where the brand now has to assert their right. And rightfully so, which is why in Super Brands, we require all brands now to be registered in intellectual property because there's no way that you'll be able to protect your brand. Now,
Unless you're registered.
unless you're registered. Now, the funny part is, as much as I'm glad you're on air and you're taking an advocacy on behalf of IP, and I'm glad it's waking up, that awareness generation is very much a requirement. A lot of entrepreneurs out there still don't understand why they should do it, how they should do it, how long it takes, and why it will help them. Wala kayong panlaban po, mga nakikinig, no? If that may nangyari sa inyo at ninakaw ang goodwill nyo, patay ka na, wala ka ng laban, wala ka ng kalaban-laban. Yan, gaya niyang Kino Rogers. Ano ba naman? I mean, hindi patawa yun eh. Ang tawag doon, hindi patawa, ninanakaw yung, kasi ang produkto niya, manok din eh. Eh, Kenny Rogers, manok din yun. Is obvious ba? Ang kulay niya, pareho din, pula din yung dalawa. Bakit napayagan? Eh, ayan na. Diyan na nga nagkakasiraan. There is definite intent sometimes with entrepreneurs because you try to grab the workload
You try
of
to take
another.
shortcuts.
Yeah, I was in food and beverage for close to 28 years, and one of the brands that I've developed how many? Let's say 20 brands. One of them was Culture Club, which I put up twice. And when I came back to Department of Trade and Industry to re-register the name Culture Club, which was 10 years after, only then did I realize I failed to re-register every 5 years. Every 5 years, you have to register your trade name with DTI. But nakaligtaan kasi hindi naman ako nagninegosyo. Sinara ko naman yung brand na yon. And now I wanted to revisit it. After all, I did register it, only to find out I couldn't use it anymore. Now, there you go. There's a perfect example of businessmen and entrepreneurs that try to step over one another with real intent. The intent is to steal your goodwill
name,
and your brand. And it does happen even in birth names. If you know, for example, the Chinese who have moved into the Philippines, they call themselves Washington, Dennis, C. Yung mga ganon, you know?
Yeah.
Andrew, whatever. Diba, iba-iba. What I'm just trying to say is, there is, in that specific case, you cannot brand because that's your civil right na, no? But in a way, branding, your name is your brand.
Yes, that's what's in a name. And names are important especially when you go into commerce.
Exactly. Tingnan mo kay Angelo Reyes, his passing away. Anong sinagot niya sa Senado? Pangalan ko yan. Ang apelyido ko lang ipaglalaban ko. Lahat naman po sa atin, gano'n naman eh. Pero pagdating sa commerce, you have to understand how it works. And if you don't register, you are the loser and you are an island. Correct me if I'm wrong, di ba?
Yes.
In that,
You're right. Definitely, you're correct. And it doesn't take much to register, although we are all not aware that it is part of the business process. When you start up a business, you file for sanitation permit, you need this and that. Please don't miss out on trademark registration, especially since it only takes 1,090 pesos to register with the intellectual property.
Why don't the business practice in the Philippines, why not require intellectual property? That's the only part I have a hard time understanding. When you register for commerce, gusto mo magnegosyo, you go to DTI or SEC. And when you go to local government to get your mayor's permit, di ba? Food,
They
your
are all
sanitation.
mandatory.
Oh,
They're all
why don't we make, dapat maging mandatory ang
Trademark
intellectual
registration is
trademark.
optional.
Oh nga, why is that? Is that the way it is worldwide?